All right, all right, all right. First, I want to say sorry for the inconvenience. Had few technical difficulties, but we are back again for another live open court discussion in the Counselor's Corner. I am your host, David Lorenzo Glover, aka the Controversial Counselor. My normal co-host, the Big Bad Wolf Herb Lewis, is not available this evening due to an illness. So I'm going to have on the panel tonight is Willie Price, who is an author, motivational speaker, coach. I guess it runs the gamut. So we're going to hear a little bit more about him, and this is right up his alley. This topic, which tonight is the Teen Toolkit. Are we preparing them for life? Which is an important subject matter because a lot of times we think that it's all about academics, and if they go to, if we get them on the track to go to college or to the next level, that means they're going to be prepared for life. But that's not always the case. So we're going to throw out some concepts as far as that. Also on the panel is Lakia Perry. She'll be joining us. She's a regular on the panel. So let me just finish the introduction. This past Monday, we had discussed mental health. Where do we go now? Do we care like we should? And like I said, tonight, the topic is Teen Toolkit. Are we preparing them for life? So in today's day and age, the push is for children to be career and college ready. And everything is about taking rigorous courses to prepare them for college. What are we teaching them at home as far as communication, conflict resolution, cooking, budgeting, planning, technology etiquette, relationship building, and tons of other things? So we're going to discuss that tonight. Please like and share the video, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. So, all right, here we go. So, how you doing, Lakia, this evening?
I am doing well, thank you. I had it on mute because I always have kids or dog or something trying to run around in this house. So I try to be mindful of my background noise. So yeah, all is well. I'm glad to be here. Right, as always. Thank you.
And I might need you to, if you can, share the link in the thing. The link is already here, but somebody's asking for the link. And okay, I got it through YouTube, so I don't know if that causes them not to click on it. Willie, how you doing this evening?
I'm blessed. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me. Thanks for inviting me.
All right. So because you're new to the panel, let everyone know. Tell us a little bit about yourself, some of the things you did, how you're connected with the teens, and some of the things or projects you have going on.
Well, my name is Willie A. Price. I go by Willie A. Price Speaks because I'm a speaker. I'm with the National Speakers Association. I've been speaking I've been actually doing workshops for about 15 years. But I've been speaking, doing the things that I'm doing now for about the last 10 years. But I've been doing workshops and so forth for about 20 years. Prior to that, before I got into doing what I'm doing now, I was involved in real estate. My stepfather taught me real estate at an early age. And based on that, I got into real estate. Then I started learning how to do my own property, how to manage my own properties, things like that. So I started a property inspection company. Then I started several other businesses. I wanted to teach people how to manage and run their own real estate. So then I started writing books. Les Brown encouraged me to write my first book. So I ended up writing books. And as I started to go on and do these things, I ended up getting married and moved to Niagara Falls and got involved in Niagara Falls High School, where they needed someone to do workshops. And what I did was I started a program called No Dream is Impossible, where I tried to show young people that they could take their dreams, thoughts, and ideas and use those to start businesses, to create opportunities, the same things I did. And I kind of started off telling you what I started out doing in the beginning, because those are the things that I teach young people how to do. I teach them how to do real estate. I teach them how to start their own business. And now we actually do introduce them to introduction to the stock market. And what I found during that time with No Dream is Impossible, our boys were lacking. Our boys were always falling behind with the girls, and that's because boys mature a lot slower than young ladies. And so as a result of that, our boys were being lost. By the time they got into high school, they were ready to drop out because they were so far behind. So what I started doing was I started a program called From Boys to Men, preparing young men for success and not the streets. And through that program, we did everything from physical, personal, and financial development, hygiene, nutrition, dress for success, self-awareness, self-esteem, self-confidence. And then we got into the financial part. And what I do with the boys is I tell them, I want to show you 3 to 5 ways how you can generate wealth for yourself, how to make money. And so that's what gets their attention, showing them how they can make money. Because the thing is, once you mention money to them and showing them how they can do it without having to turn to the streets to do it, now you've got their attention. Now you just have to come through with it. And so that's where we go into entrepreneurship, vocational training, which is something that you talked about earlier, vocational training, entrepreneurship, real estate, all aspects of real estate, and then introduction to the stock market. And when you show a kid, instead of buying a pair of Nikes, you can own Nike stock and let Nikes buy you a pair of Nikes. You give them a whole different mindset because now you've got their attention. And then you just have to show them how to make it happen. So that's me. That's Willie A. Price. Willie A. Price Speaks.
All right. That's a lot, man. That's a lot. I'm definitely interested in that like curriculum that you have going on. And I know I'm at the middle school level in Baltimore County, and I know those boys, they definitely need that toolage, especially when you talk about making money. Wow,
right.
That's great.
This book actually right here is this is my middle school. When you said middle school, we created journals to go along with the programs, because what we found was, like I said, young ladies mature a lot faster. And one of the things that you notice with young ladies, a lot of them keep journals. They keep journals and they're able to write their thoughts and ideas down. And then that allows them to go back and track what they're doing and keep track of it and become successful. I said, why hasn't anybody come up with a journal for boys so they can write down their ideas instead of trying to remember everything? So that's what I created, was this middle school. This was the first one. This is the middle school book, which is what you do. And then I was contacted by City of Rochester to work with their high school boys. And they were asking me all the things you were just talking about: college, laws, sexual awareness, entrepreneurship, vocational stuff. And none of that was in my middle school book. So while they were asking me the questions, I started writing down all the things they were asking me for. And I sat down and wrote the high school edition. So that way I would have a high school edition that I could present to them as well.
Now, one of the things that I want to bring the other ladies in to get their feedback. How do you get those boys to write? Because it seemed like, and not all of them, but that seems like one of the greatest struggles, like to get them to write. They rather have those hands-on classes. I'm not even gonna say art. Well, most of them, they like the team sports. Some of them will get into art, but a lot of times language arts and English is one of the ones that many of them are not passionate about. Even they may be more into math, because math is a little kind of hands-on as well. So, or science, but language arts is one of the ones that many of them struggle with.
Well, I mentioned to you a little while ago that I just did a workshop for the teachers in Toronto. And that workshop was called, Are You Working with Right Brain Students? And what you just mentioned is what's called right brain learning. And what right brain learning is, if you play a song for a kid and he hears that song, he can come back and sing that song word for word, or that rap song word for word, because it's their right brain picks it up and they're able to repeat it. But if you were to give them that same song and tell them to write it down, boys don't write. Kids don't write. Once they get to 3rd and 4th grade, we lose a lot of our boys because they fall behind in writing, and you have the teachers giving them textbooks and ditto sheets where they have to read and they have to write. So they feel uncomfortable doing it. So what do? They act out so they can get kicked out of class so they don't have to do the work. But when you give a kid, you play what we do in our program. when they come in, the first thing we do is we do what's called music meditation, where we play an instrumental song. It could be a rap song. It could be whatever kind of song that's popular. They hear the beat, but they don't hear the words. And when they walk in, they sit down in the classroom, and we don't have to say, sit down, be quiet, because the music calms them down. You ever hear music calms the savage beast? Well, that's sort of how it is with young people. When you play that music, they know the song, but they don't hear the words. And what it does is it calms them down. And then after about 3 to 5 minutes, then we start our program. We show videos, we do music, we do all kinds of things you said, artwork with them, things where they can feel comfortable. And then as we're talking about starting your business, we talk about, okay, when you start your business, you may have to use some contracts. So you need to know what you're putting in those contracts, which is telling them what? You need to know how to read. But now they know for themselves, this is why I need to know how to read. So now they start doing it themselves. When you do that contract, if you sign that contract, you need to know what you're signing. So now they know they need to know how to write out that contract. And now they're motivated to do it because you're not saying you need to read, you need to write, which is what they normally hear, but you're not giving them a reason to want to read and write. But when you say, if you're going to run this business and you don't want somebody, and they say they're going to give you 10%, you need to know what 10% is that they're going to give you. Now, what do you tell them? You need to know math. Mm-hmm. And so now they start picking up for themselves. Okay, I need to know how to do this. I need to know how to do that because it's going to help me with my business. See, now they know why they want to do it. They have a reason to want to read. They have a reason to want to write. They have a reason to want to learn math because it's going to help them to make the money for their business. And that's where the journal comes in because it's their journal. So they can practice their writing. They're not the best writers, but they can practice their writing in the book. There's sections in the book that we do in the program that's all in the book. So that way they can go home and practice the things that we've talked about in the program instead of trying to remember what we talked about in the program. It's called right brain learning, which is what you just talked about.
Okay, wow, that's a lot of good information. Lakia, anything, since you were one of the first ones on here, anything you want to add to that, and especially like some of the tools that you have for your children in their toolbox, because certainly we have to give them some skills and there's some things that we have to work with them or talk about on a daily basis for them to be productive citizens, law-abiding citizens.
Well, it's forever. You're forever learning. You know what to do for your. Try to train your kids, but exactly what Willie's saying and what this topic is about. Like with my kids, one of the things I think I was sharing with someone not too long ago, I heard on TikTok that you could add your child on your credit card and that can help their credit score later on, and it's starting to build a credit, score for them. I did that for 2 of my daughters so far, and they both work. So I'm like, okay, pay the credit card off. I'm trying to teach them responsibility, doing things like that, as well as I was paying their cell phone bill. And now that they're working, I'm like, okay, now you have to pay the cell phone bill, teaching them those tools. It's starting to teach them responsibility, pay bills, be on time with your bills, and starting to install that savings. We talk about, I teach the girls and my boys about savings. The boys are still a little behind because they're not working yet. They're a little younger, but the girls and my older son, they're all establishing themselves. Even my oldest daughter, she's bought her own car, hasn't, have her own insurance, teaching them like by example. So like I have a whole bill thing that I have calendar to pay my bills, and I show that. I let them see what I do as far as with bills and things like that. Just try to make it short, but there's a lot of different things I teach my kids. But one of the things I know is missing in the school. It is missing in the school system because I went to LaSalle. LaSalle did all of that. They had accounting. They had the auto department, where there was mechanics. They had agriculture. They had so many different programs and I'm like, why did they tear that school down? Now, what are they doing hands-on now? And we need so much more of that because that's where a lot of the skills are and where money is being made, and college is not for everybody. So just a little quick of some of the things that I've been teaching. So many things you teach your kids, but that's some of the things I've been teaching them. So that's fine.
And I want to speak to that vocational thing, but I want the other ladies to get a chance to touch bases on this subject matter. So we're just gonna go down in order. Scorpio T, what's your take as far as toolbox preparing your children for the future? Some of the things you did, and how did that work?
Bless you.
Well, my kids are all adults now, 24, 28, and 30. So the things that I did way back when, I probably will do with my granddaughters as well. For example, teaching children how to fill out an application. My children learned that from me. My children had a savings account and a state ID when they was 6 and 7 and 8 years old. So, you have to teach them all of that. I'm a reader. I like to read. So I try to instill the love of reading in my children because I think writing is a culture. So for people who really are not natural writers, it's a little bit harder, but writing is a culture. So my kids can grocery shop, they can clean, they can cook, they can do pay bills. Two out of the three of them have their own businesses, so on and so forth. So I did whatever was necessary to try to ensure that they become successful in this life.
All
And
right.
that's a whole lot of everything to try to teach them about credit and all of that. So yeah.
Okay. Rebecca, how you doing?
I'm fine. How are you?
All right. So, what's some of the things that you have for your kids in their toolbox?
Um, I'm like her. All my kids are grown. My youngest is 20. Um, my daughter, she's getting ready to buy her first home. So she decided to move back home while she's doing that. So I'm excited for her. Since she's been home, she's managed to save $8,000. So hopefully she'll be doing this all on her own. But if she needs my help, I'll help her. My youngest son is 20, and I think one of the early shows when I got on, I was talking about how he was struggling because he scholarshiped athletically to school and suffered a concussion, ended up coming home. Then COVID hit. He didn't get a chance to go back. So I think his identity was wrapped up in sports. He wanted to be a coach, if he didn't go any farther with his football or track career. So um he was lost for about 9 months. He just did not know what to do. We were unsure about what to do for him. And he started working. He's had a bank account since he was born, actually. So he knows how to save money. When he started college, I got him a credit card. They give them to college kids, and he did really well with that. Actually, his credit score is higher than mine right now. He was able to purchase his own car with his own signature, without my help, and he's back in school now. I think it took him working for Amazon, which he absolutely hates, to realize that he wanted to go back to school and finish, which I'm excited about. Um, he I think my daughter, like you said, I think she matured way faster. There was very little I had to do for her in preparation for college. She's always journaled, and she actually introduced that to my son when he was a junior in high school, for the exact reasons you said, to keep his thoughts um, in order, and he could go back and look. And he started it mostly to plan because he was so busy, but it escalated into just kind of seeing his life on paper and which direction. He had a really bad habit of not seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. He was just kind of like, I want to do this, but he never thought about what would happen if football didn't pan out for him. What do you do next? And he still has moments where he talks like that. If I can't play football, I don't want to go to this school. And it took some writing of pros and cons lists about the school he chose, and going down both roads, the positive and the negative. What are you going to do if you don't make the team? Do you want to stay? This and this. And so he seems to be on track. I also put him in counseling. I thought that he needed an unbiased ear to talk to about the things that were on his mind, just so that he didn't always feel like there was judgment looking at him from the people in the house. Although I wouldn't do that, but I think in his mind, some of the things I say sound like I'm passing judgment. And not to say that I never have, because I have, but I try to be more supportive than judgmental. My biggest desire is to see them all succeed and be able to live outside of this home successfully and have families. So I kind of agree with everything that everyone has said so far about the things that I've taught. I'm sure I've forgotten something. Usually it crops up and I'll say, oh, forgot to tell you about that. But so far, so good. But I think this is a good topic for tonight.
All right, thank you. Raleigh T. And I know you're in education, so you know you go through it too on a daily basis of trying to motivate them and get them to the next level or just get through the quarter or the marking period.
Yeah, I certainly do. I have 4 children, so I have a 17-year-old who will be 18-year-old in December. So my first two are girls, 17 and 12, and then my younger two are boys, and they are ages 2 and 3 respectively. Well, 3 and 2 respectively. Um, my daughter's, my 12-year-old has had an account since she was 8 years old, and her sister was about 14, something like that. But they've had and before then they had bank accounts, but it wasn't until that they were about 8 that they actually got like an actual checking account. And I taught them how to balance a checkbook. My daughters know how to go shopping, calculate taxes. My 12-year-old hates taxes. She's like, I don't understand. Why do I have to pay extra money for this? Like, what are they doing with this extra money that they're getting out of me? This isn't fair. And I don't like adulthood, and I'm not even an adult yet. So, my 17-year-old, she knows how to do taxes. That's something she learned in school. And we had a whole conversation about it because she was like, oh my God, like you do this to yourself every year? You torture yourself like this? And I'm like, yeah, I do my own taxes every year. And she was like, you torture yourself like this? Like, I understand why people pay somebody else to do this. This is too much. I was like, yeah, you need to learn you need to know about the laws that go along with it so you don't screw yourself in the end. So yeah, it's a lot of work. And if you don't like numbers, this is not a career for you. You might want to think about that. So
All right.
And at work, as you guys know, I work with special education students. So I teach my kids about counting money, about credits and debits. We talk about balancing checkbooks, which a lot of people think that that's not something they can learn, but they actually do thrive well with it. When I taught ELA, we did journaling and all that stuff, and it was very helpful for a lot of my kids. It was very therapeutic for them because, you know, in it, they would tell me about something that was on their mind or something they had went through. You know, I would tell them if if we left on a Friday and came back on Monday, okay, this morning, tell me about your weekend. What did you do? So they would journal about their weekend. And, you know, it was just one of those things. And I would send them little notes back because it was all on they had it all saved on like a Google Drive. So I could go in and look at it and make comments and, you know, talk to them about it. And it kind of eased it kind of helped build the relationship with me and my students because it gave them a way to be able to talk to me without everybody knowing their business. And if they needed help with something or with something going on that they didn't want anybody to know about, they could feel free to express that to me and know that if it's something that, you know, was important or needed to go a certain direction, I would make sure that they got the help that they need. So.
All right, cool. Anita, anything you want to add to it?
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Well, I don't have any kids, but I have a niece and nephew. I try to be a good role model for them. I wish I got to spend more time with them. My nephew's 3, my niece is 15, I think. And unfortunate that the high school is all combined because I wish like it still was Niagara Falls High School in Lacelle, because I think the school right now is way too populated to help the kids that really need the help and concentrate on the people, well, the students that aren't picking up on the things that they need to pick up on. So in my personal life, I try to express that, for one, emotional control is very important. Because if you can't communicate and you're just getting mad and you don't know how to communicate your feelings, that's going to be a big problem for the rest of your life, in my perspective, from my perspective. And two, I have education is very important to me. No matter where you get education, like from college, from life experiences, it doesn't always have to be college, but life experiences. I have a lot of life experience from the Army, and I wish a lot of people, I wish that my mom had the, not the knowledge, but yeah, I guess the knowledge too, because my grandma's 107, so my mom is very old fashioned. She didn't grow up with these educational skills. And she was a very busy single mom. So I wish that I would have learned a lot of things that they're learning now in high school, and that would have helped me tremendously with my budgeting skills, accounting skills, maybe even social skills. So I have my own house. I finance my own self. I was taught not to rely on a man for anything, be self-sufficient. Although a partnership is great, but still you're self-sufficient, and rely on yourself, and you have to learn how to make that happen. So I try to be a good role model for kids around me, basically.
All right. Thank you all for sharing that. So, Willie, I'm
You
gonna
mind if I add one thing to that? Because I was thinking about it as Anita was speaking. Like, one of the things that I made sure I really tried hard to do with my children was not only teach them the law, but make them to understand that for every cause there is an effect. And a lot of young men get caught up over a little girl. So I tried to teach them the do's and the don'ts. For example, you know, we can tell our children to be celibate all you want to, but I believe that you give them the proper information to let them be able to make an informed decision and to be able to protect themselves. So, for example, one of the things I've always said is, don't you ever get caught at some little girl's house and you wasn't invited in through the front door, because that little girl has a father, and I don't think her father would take kindly to something like that. So it's things like that when you have, because all of my children are boys. So it's certain things when you have boys, you have to teach them about a certain thing, and then you have to teach girls about a different thing, and then you bring them both together because, like for example, my children when they were becoming teenagers, uh, didn't ever consider the fact that little boys could be violated. So I made them sit down and watch the John Wayne Gacy documentary with me, because I want you to understand that you have to be smart enough to not put yourself in a situation, because you can be a victim. Just because you a male does not mean you cannot be victimized. You don't put yourselves in that situation. You make sure that you take stock. My kids wasn't able to go over people's houses whose parents I didn't know, so on and so forth. I have to talk to the parents. So it's a lot of different things that go into that, because when if you put into a situation that you're not haven't been discussed or talked about or anything, you might not know what to do. I wanted it to be second nature for them to understand this is what you don't do. This is how you approach that. So that was the only portion that I wanted to add, because that was an aspect that I definitely focused on with them growing up.
All right. So one of the things, and I want to come at you first with this, Willie. And we had talked about vocational schools, and at a certain point, that used to be kind of taught in every school, and I think that was part of the hidden curriculum to remove it, because, and I'm being controversial right now, but I think to me it was a plan to kind of destroy the young black men when you take away the vocational ability and you start pumping, oh, everybody has to be career and college ready, because we all know that, hey, we is the mastermind of help building the country, and we're good with our hands. And I think some of the kids, if those programs were still in there, I'm pretty sure the suspension rates would be lower, because these kids will be motivated to, okay, we got to go to auto mechanics. I got to go to, electric, or used to be called electric shop, wood shop, and all this stuff. Those are things that they would prefer to get into. But then a lot of schools, they designed the magnet program where you had to apply to get in and take tests and things like that. And usually the test, you had to write an essay, or you had to do well in the math portion, which kind of disqualified some of the young black males to get in there.
That's right.
So then they're left with nothing. Because you imagine if they had those programs a regular part of the school, these kids would get that, they'll go and do an apprenticeship, and they will come out as 19, 20-year-olds making $50,000, $60,000. And if they're ready to start a family, they'll be on the rise, but not the way it's designed. It doesn't work that way. So that's why we have all this chaos. So that's one of the things I always think about. So what's your take on that, Willie?
Well, that's true. And exactly what you said is the fact that if you think about it, back in slavery and after slavery, we weren't allowed to learn how to read and write during slavery. So what did we do? We were right brain learners. We learned how to do everything with our hands. We learned how to build. We learned how to do bricklaying. We learned how to create cotton gins. We learned how to do all kinds of things, but we couldn't read and write the whole time. Now we get into these vocational trades where we're able to start our own business, be independent, like you said. And what did they do? They took it and they made it a system where they were able to eliminate them. You have to be able to read and take an exam and fill out, do essays, all the things that they know that a lot of our young people, young boys particularly, lack in. So now they can't read and do the exams because they're behind in their grade levels. Normally by fourth grade, they're falling behind in reading and writing. So now they have to take these exams. They don't do good in the exams because they're having a difficult time reading, they're having a difficult time writing. So now they don't qualify to go to vocational schools. When they do go to vocational schools, even after graduation, they graduate and they go to vocational to try to get vocational learning later. What do they hand them? A textbook and paperwork to do reading and writing, which is they're already behind because they've never reached grade level. So now you're giving them this textbook in a vocational training afterwards, and they're dropping out because a lot of times they can't keep up with the work. But if you were sitting there showing them, prior to that, they could sit and they would learn bricklaying from somebody. They learn carpentry. They learn sheet metal. They learned all those things. They couldn't read a lick. And you still could take a kid right now, and their uncles will take them out who work on houses and work on cars and all these kind of take computers loose, and they'll sit and watch those things. And if that's something they're interested in, I always tell people, you can do anything. That's why I tell my kids all the time, you can do anything you set your mind to. So when they set their mind and wanting to do something and learn something, they can look at it and figure out how to do it. But if you were to give them that same information in a book or on a sheet of paper, they get lost with it because they don't feel confident with reading. And because their comprehension isn't that well, it puts them in a lacking situation. So that's why I bring in people to talk about vocational training and see if they will offer them opportunities to come in and see what they do on their jobs and learn and see if it's something that they're interested in. Because again, by them seeing what it takes, then they can determine whether it's something that they're interested in, finding 3 to 5 ways that they can take their thoughts, ideas, and create business opportunities from it. But putting it in a book, they always say, if you want to hide something from a person, well, you know who a person they're talking about, put it in a book.
Right.
So, and that's what you find. Anytime they want to keep something from us, vocational training, education, computers, put it in a book. Because they know a lot of our young people aren't capable of reading the comprehension of that book. But they take that same kid and put him in a class and let him watch somebody take that computer loose, build that car, build that house, lay those bricks, and they'll walk out of it and go do it somewhere. And they wouldn't be able to tell you how they did it, but they know step by step how to do it because they're visual. That's what's called right brain learning. And that's what I work with the schools. Right now, I'm in LaSalle and I'm at Gaskill. And that's what I'm doing with the teachers, trying to show them how more proficient the students will be if you do right brain activities with them, where you're giving them videos and giving them assignments where they can look on YouTube and what do we do? YouTube, we do all those kind of things where they can visually and listen to books on tape, all those kind of things where they're not required to have to read or write, and then they can practice as they start to comprehend the work. They start to practice their writing, practice those things because now they know the purpose of it. But that's how they eliminate us from vocational, is through putting the things in the books, like you said earlier. And so that's, like I said, we do a lot of this in the program. The lady was talking about sexual awareness. All that is in my high school journal. They don't allow me to talk too much about sexual awareness in my middle school programs. But my boys came in last week talking about what they did over spring break. So we're going to have that talk tomorrow when I go in there. We're going to have that talk. But we do a section on laws that teens should know. And then we do a section on sexual awareness. Because again, laws that teens should know. How many people in here know that if you hang something on your rear view mirror, the police can pull you over? It's called obstructed driving. And a lot of young people, they don't know that. A lot of grown people don't know that. But see, you're saying, well, you don't want to give the police any reason to pull you over, and they're driving along and they got this tassel from graduation hanging on the rear view mirror. The police see them and they do what? Pull them over. And now the kid does what? Why'd you pull me over? I wasn't doing anything. Now it becomes a reaction thing, and then it escalates into a bigger issue.
Hey, I got my work badge hanging over my thing, but it usually get me out of a ticket, whatever, once they find out I'm an educator, so I keep it up there.
Oh, yeah.
I know, Lakia, you were trying to come in and say something.
Yeah, if we think about in past time before money was created, everything was barter and trade. Everything was masonry, carpentry, fishing, sewing. That's what it was, always our hands. And when, if you wanted something, you traded what you did for something that someone else needed, or what you need, you needed. That's what we were always built. We were built that way almost from the beginning. It was before money and before books, before education. It was always our gifts were with our hands and with our mind. Like there was no books to teach them how to build pyramids. There were no books to teach them how to, that's why they did that, because they know that that's not what it was. We weren't designed. We were created to be creators and to use our gifts to barter and trade. So now, okay, we have this whole vocational thing going on. I mean, the education system going on. And I remember when I was in college, I was reading, a book about marketing and franchising or something in Russia. And the thought was like, this is a cartel. Education is a cartel. They're just trying to take our money. I'm not saying that all things is, some things you're going to need a college degree to get to those type of positions. But I do believe education is a cartel. But I also want to share about, when somebody mentioned about this, you talking about the boys and guys talking about sexuality and the things that they're experiencing, and Scorpion T mentioned about talking to her boys about going to people's houses. I remember always saying to my boys, I said, listen, don't ever walk into anybody's house unless you have them call me to tell that their parent called me and said it's okay for you to go into their home. Like all of those things, protecting our children from different things, like from things like that happening, because that's happened as well. Like wrongfully accused.
Say, look, the power of the kitty cat. I had them doing some strange things once they tasted. That's why I tried to teach them something different. However, what I was trying to also interject is, I think there's a service, I think it's still there, that's not but used, that can give children the opportunity to graduate from it with some type of a degree or certification. That's Job Corps. So they can attend Job Corps, I think, from the ages of 16 to 24, which is can be a very hands-on type of learning. So I I would encourage people to really take advantage of that, especially if you can't afford to send your child to college, because not everybody is college quote unquote material, and not everybody is financially stable to send their children to college, even though they want to give them the best. Job Corps is a service that is not used as much as it should be.
And you know why I think it's not used? Because it used to be, I remember growing up, it used to be like a negative connotation with
Right.
that. Like if you went
Yep.
to Job Corps, that mean it was you had some issues going on
Behavior
and
issues.
you were sent there.
Cool.
So I remember one of my friends had signed up. He was like, and he was probably about, I don't know, 17, 18. It's like, yo, you know what? I don't got much going on. I'm going to Job Corps. And we're like, Job Corps? Like for what? And he went there again. He learned to trade, got his license and different things. But we thought he was crazy as hell that he was going away and like, yo, so you're not gonna be around on the weekends to get with us and drink 40s or whatever. And he was like, I'll be to come home some weekends, but we just, and I think we didn't want him to go because he would be away from us. But he decided that that's something he wanted to do to get away because he felt like he wasn't going to college or anything, and it was something to keep him busy and be productive at the same time.
I agree
Yeah,
with
by
some
the time he
things,
was
but
21.
some things
Go ahead,
I think
Anita.
children still need to understand reading and comprehension, because through your whole life, I know it's not just the Black community. I know my best friend's husband, he was just pushed through the system in special ed, even though he is very brilliant, and he has a form of dyslexia that nobody caught on to. So he was in special ed. He doesn't need to be in special ed. Now he's 40 something years old and doesn't know how to read and comprehend, and he's learning. So I think not just right brain learning, but also learning how to be a strong reader and comprehension is still very important. And it's not just, I know you guys say a lot about the Black community and the slavery and everything, but my dad, he was in vocational, he didn't go to regular high school. He's 70 something years old. And he could have been so much better, not so much better, but he could have been so much more had somebody take the time to really reach into him and pull out his qualities, his strong qualities. So
Well, when I
understand.
mentioned the boys, I work with boys of all races. So when I said boys normally from 3rd to 4th grade and up. I didn't say a color, but because the thing is, it doesn't matter what color you are. Boys always fall behind in girls as far as maturity. And the right brain learning helps them to be more willing to learn how to read. If you just stick a book in front of that kid, he gets frustrated because he can't read it. Like you said, your father and those people, they get frustrated and they can't read it, and they're given no alternative. But by giving them a right brain opportunity to be able to learn the same information through video, through audio books, those kind of things, while they're still working on learning. Because now if you give them that book and the book has the audio tape playing and they're looking at the words in the book, now they can comprehend because they can kind of pick it up. But if you just hand them a book and tell them to read it because they don't have that comprehension, it's a lost cause. They get frustrated, they act out, the teacher puts them out the room, which is what they want, and then they're gone. And that's black, white, that's yellow kids, it don't matter. But the thing is, giving them the book, because that's what I do with them. We give them books. Like I said, I give them a journal. But at the same time, I'm talking about the same stuff that's in the journal. So that way they can follow along with me in the journal, and then in the back they can write notes, ideas, questions, practice their writing, those kind of things. You have to give them that book, but you have to give them a reason to want to understand why they need to read it. So by helping them to still feel like they can stay with the group by that right brain learning, by instead of watching the book, reading the book, listening to the book on tape, listening to the book on audio, and then being able to come in and do an oral presentation. Again, still not forcing them to write, but allowing, because even if they do an oral presentation, what do they got to do? They got to write notes. So they don't have to write the whole speech or the whole presentation out, but now they can write their notes. So they're practicing their writing, but then you allow them to do an oral presentation. or oral exam. Those things, like I said, they're listening, they hear the information, and that kid can sit back and tell you everything they heard. They can tell you how they understand what that book was about because they heard it and they were able to listen to it. But give it to them and let them read it, they're lost because they don't have the comprehension for it. So that's where the right brain comes in. You're still encouraging them to read. You're still I'm gonna tell you quick, I'll go real quick. I was the worst reader. I don't know. I was the worst reader in school. Worst reader, worst writer. Only reason why I learned how to read is because I got suspended 26 times and I wasn't allowed to go outside. And we had the encyclopedias at home, and my mother said no TV. So all I could do is lay on the floor and look at the encyclopedia. So that's how I learned how to read. But the thing was, I was still a horrible writer because nobody ever taught me punctuation or anything like that. I did not learn how to read and write until I actually got into college. When I told my roommates who were from Asian students, I said, I got to go do this book report. And they said, well, what are you going to do? I said, I got to go read the book. And they said, you're going to read the book? What do you? And I said, yeah, I got to do a book report. They said, let us show you how they teach us in China. Now think about it. Because how do you think all these Chinese people come? How do they get to pass all these classes and they Chinese and can't read? And they teach them a certain way how to read and write when they come to America so they can do the work. And they said, let us show you how they teach us in China. I went from C's and D's to A's and B's in the University of Buffalo. Graduated. I've written 16 books. Okay, 16 books. I was a kid that couldn't read and write at the time, but at the time, I was afraid to open the book because I didn't understand it. But they, like I said, as I got older, I had an interest in it. I could read because I was forced to, but I couldn't write. I was a horrible writer. And once I learned how to put it all together and comprehend from them teaching me how they were taught, I've written 16 books.
And school should be multifaceted. It should be, because I have a son that's dyslexic. Thank God he had a good teacher because she caught it. I was just thinking, and I said this on a previous broadcast, I was just thinking, like, you really are trying me. Get me a belt right now. But it was he was in special ed, and it was a special ed teacher that caught it. And one of those things that she did with us was you play the tape and have him read along with it. And she was teaching us different ways for him to differentiate between different letters and things of that nature. And had she not caught that, I don't know if he would really be able to read, because I did listen as a parent. I was doing everything I knew how to do. I'm talking everything. I even took him to what is that called? Sylvan Learning, I believe it was, and wasted $6,000 because they didn't do anything.
Yeah, highway robbery.
And so if it was not for that darn good teacher with that darn good specialty and that good eye to catch it, I don't know where he would have been. So I think schools should have a multifaceted approach to teaching, because not every child does learn strictly from reading and writing. However, reading, writing, and math are the three things that you're going to always use as an adult. So you should become proficient at it, but you should be able to become proficient at it in the manner in which you learn, because not everybody learns the same. And I know Brolic T can tell you that.
And how many times have they told us our kids are bad at math, especially our boys are bad at math, and then they drop out of school and they go on the street corner, and what can they do? They can count that money, they can divide up all those drugs, they can do all that stuff that they said that takes math to do.
All the math in the world.
That's right.
That's so true.
When they set their mind to do something, they can do whatever they set their minds to do. So and that's true. All, and it's all right brain learning. Ain't nobody give them something real down and say, here, read this, this is how you do it. They learned it visually, and then they were able to put it together. That's why the right brain learning is so important, especially with our young men.
So since boys and girls learn different, is there a special program for girls to teach them how to learn, like how they learn?
Girls learn easier from texts and diddles. Girls learn easier from texts and diddles. You give a girl a book, a girl sit down and go in her room and read a book all day. You know what I mean? That's a lot easier for girls. See, girls mature faster than boys. So
Right.
it's not teaching them a different way. Girls just pick up differently. Most girls are left brain learners. You can give them a book, they'll sit and read it. They can write. They're confident, and girls' handwriting is so much better. Boys, because they don't know how to write, they're writing. You ever see a boy's handwriting? They don't want to write because they're embarrassed by the way they write. So they get frustrated, and then they don't take part. They don't want to stand up and read. One of the things we do in my program is called the Art of Public Speaking. I'm a public speaker. Art of Public Speaking. When they talk and we do presentations, how was your weekend? They have to stand up and they tell us verbally. They present. Everything we do is, like I said, verbally, visual, those kind of activities. So as you're getting them talking, because they hated it first. I don't want to do any public speaking, but now they're so used to it. So now they can, how was your weekend? What did you have for lunch? What sports do you like to play? Things that they enjoy talking about, getting them up and stand up talking about it, getting their confidence together. So now when they do have to present in the classroom, they're confident and comfortable with speaking in public because it's something that they enjoy doing now. And so our boys get such a good rapport now because they are able to speak and share their feelings. Another thing we do is we teach our boys how to play chess. You're talking about focus, relaxation, concentration, thinking ahead of your actions. What's going to happen if I make this move? What's going to happen if I hit this person for pushing my chair? Making them think ahead of the actions that they make, just like in chess, makes them think twice before they do some of the things they do in life.
That's really
So
good.
we use chess, all visual, all those kind of things are visual things. But it's teaching them, like I said, folks, chess is a very good game. Focus, concentration, thinking ahead, all those kind of activities.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a reason why they're saying whatever you playing checkers and we playing chess, whatever. It applies, whatever. Like we're out thinking you, whatever. So one of the things also I think about, and somebody had mentioned that, and I think about like the state testing, and I've been in positions where I had to be a reader, and you reading this stuff to these kids, and these are typically the special ed kids that are taking the test in a smaller group, and you have to read the stuff to them, and as I'm reading it, I'm thinking like, there's no way in hell that these kids are going to get this. Like, what are they talking about? I'm ready to fall asleep reading this to them. And they sitting there and they like clueless. And I'm like, and they got to be graded for this. And it counts toward their placement in high school and stuff like that. And I'm like, man, it's just the no-win situation in many cases. And I don't mean to make it seem so dire because some people do excel over it, but I just think about the kids that's in the middle road to the back end and the struggles they have to go through. And I'm like, I don't, and they looking at me and they asking for help. I can't really tell you anything, or what do this word mean? And I'm like, I can't say anything. And I'm like, trust me, like just keep trying, whatever, because I don't know what's going on. I don't even know what they talk about in this passage, but it's crazy out here.
Wow.
Anybody else want to add to it?
My reading comprehension isn't all that great either, so I wish I would have learned a little bit more in high school about presentation and reading comprehension when I was in high school too. So I get that it's difficult, especially when you get to be an adult. Like I was in the Army for 12 years. I had really learned a lot about writing counseling statements because I had to, and reading counseling statements because I had to read the rules and regulations and all that. But my reading comprehension, I wish there was a program when I went to high school that helped me like that. So I think that's a good program.
One of the things I wanted to.
What?
Do you do books on tape now, or audio books or anything like that now as an adult?
No, I don't. I have a couple college. I have a couple college degrees, but not without a struggle. So if I'm told to write a 2-page or 4-page paper, it comes out to be 10 or 12 pages because I don't know how to condense everything I want to say. in 2 to 4 pages because I'm very detailed from learning how to do counseling statements in the Army and having to be very detailed.
Well,
But
sometimes
that's
like
probably a good
I
idea.
still listen to books on tape. I listen to books on tape all the time. Even if it's a book I've read, I'll still listen to it on tape. And just as a relaxing way of just learning. And, you know, if you're talking about working with girls, you can do the same thing with girls too. Have them, you know, instead of having them read a book, play an audio book for them and stop it in between sections and ask questions about it and work on their comprehension. So, I mean, there's so many things you can do with the audio work, and that way you can kind of see where people are with the comprehension as well when you do an audio book versus telling them to read it, because they're all going to read at different levels anyways. But with the audio books, you can stop it at different sections, ask questions, and then they can also hear what their peers are saying and what their peers picked up from what they heard in the book from the audio.
Yeah, I noticed in college now they have where they can get the audio book, or you can get a voice recorder to record everything that's said in the classroom. So I think that's very advantageous for people like me that haven't learned strong reading comprehension skills in high school. So that's pretty interesting.
And if you have, just a side note, real quick, for people who are looking for ways of working, like I said, we're working with right brain students. Go to where blind people go to get their information. Go to where blind people go to get their information. Where they have audio, most of this stuff is audio. They have a lot of Braille, but they also have a lot of audio stuff. So any book or things like that, you can go to where blind people go, blind schools and things like that, and you can check out their books and their information and get audio books and audio things that they use to teach your kids as well. There's a lot of resources out there. You just have to know where to go to get them.
Yeah.
One thing I did want to share is when I think about the youth being in school, it was touched on too about everybody not being able to learn the same. I hate the I was trying to remember that thought when you guys were talking. I usually write it down. I didn't this time, but how it's so much it's so important, like with like there's Montessori school, there's different schools, charter schools, different. I'm glad that there's different educational out there other than schools, the regular public schools, because with the Montessori school, they help kids with those that are gifted or those that have different types of gifts. And that's what I try to do with my kids. I try to look at what they're gifted in, what they're interested in. And if, like, even with my one daughter, when I saw that she was gifted in something in the school system that we were in couldn't provide her with the help that she needed to get to the next level, I put her in a different school. We have to look at what is good for our kids, like especially if you have multiple kids. Everything is not good. Every child is not the same. They're all, as we already know, they're all not going to learn the same. I like the fact that we can have the opportunity of putting our kids in different type of school settings that will help them grow. And that's what I like to see more of that, like more different types of schools in our cities where that can help our skills. Different skills that help them grow. Yes, and like I'm not an educator, but I just know when I see something, I'm like, okay, you are good in this. This is where you need to be. Let me find a school or a place that you need to be to help you grow in that area. And I like the charter. My kids went to the charter school. My kids went to the public school. But honestly, I like the charter school because they taught the kids critical thinking. My kids are thinkers. I mean? They try to outthink me. I'm like, no, I've been here years before you, baby. You can't get there. You ain't there yet. But I like the fact that they thought, compared to my oldest son who went to the public school, I'm like, boy, do you ever think, like, use your brain? Do you think, but with the other kids, I can honestly say they will think something out and come at me with like, Mom, did you ever think about that? I'm like, really? Where did they go? But that's good. We need more of that. We need more schools that help build up the kids in the areas that they're gifted in.
Well, that's what I was talking about earlier when I was talking about we find the kids what they like. There are 3 to 5 things that they enjoy. They're specialized skills and what they're good at, and then showing them how they can use those skills to create businesses or start a business, those kind of things, or what career to go into using those skills. Because a lot of times nobody's telling them, oh, you're good at art. You could, draw murals on the side of a building and get paid thousands of dollars. There's things that they can do that they enjoy doing, but nobody's ever took the opportunity to show them what they can do with the skills that they have. And so, like what you did with your kids, that you saw they had specialized skills, and you found outlets for them to do that, where they can go and enhance those skills. Right. And that's what we have to do. A lot of times we don't pay attention to what our kids' specialized skills are. We just know that they're good at it, but we don't know how to help them to put them to use where they can benefit the most from them.
And you know what I noticed too, and I shared. Oh, I'm sorry, Dave. Were you gonna say something? I heard you breathing.
No, what I was gonna say right quick. Like I know in my school district they have what they call a 6-year plan, and it started in the 7th grade. So we do different assessments and surveys and stuff, and career inventories, and it's starting them to talk about their careers. But one of the things that I think, and us as counselors, we say, how effective is this when we come into classrooms, half of the time they forget to log on, or if they take most of the classroom time trying to just get on. But it would be nice if we found there's certain programs that are interest, and then we implement that into the classroom setting. So everything is geared toward pushing them. Their assignments and all that should be all geared toward pushing them toward their career or their interests. And I think they'll have a more vested interest in it, where English has a component, maybe in math or whatever the case is. I just think some of the ways that the old way of thinking needs to be removed, and we need to come back to the table and figure this out, because this is a different generation, and they need more hands-on, and we need to develop like more individual plans for each student. And I know we don't have enough personnel in the school, but you can group kids in together. It has to be another way. I wish I had money like that to come up with a plan and say, this is how my school gonna be, this is how we gonna run it, and we gonna see how this gonna operate, and we gonna remove ourselves from this old way of thinking.
Right. Well, shoot, some people are still stuck in the old way. Why wouldn't you teach your children to want to? My son, my oldest son, probably was 4, and I was asking him, I said, "What you want to do when you grow up?" And he was like a candy kid, so he said, "I want to work in a candy factory." And I'm like, "Well, why would you want to work in one when you can own one?" I think you have to broaden their mindset to understand that you don't have to work there. You can literally own it. You can create it. So that old way of thinking does need to be revised for today's standards. Okay, Brolic T, I'm done.
Okay, so a couple points here. I don't think it matters whether your child goes to a public school, a Catholic school, or a charter school. It's all about the faculty that's there and what their mission is, what your child will get out of it. Because I went to public school. I went to public school my whole life, and I certainly learned critical thinking skills. They were very, 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 very. That was like their number one thing that they wanted us to know. If we knew nothing else, we knew how to think critically. They taught me, and they taught those around me, how to think, be active listeners, how to be our own advocate, which is something most people don't teach their children. How to argue for themselves.
That's true. That's a good one. That's a good one.
How to positively express when they're frustrated, when they need assistance, instead of just blowing up and throwing desks and chairs, stopping and taking a breath, and then relating what it is that they are feeling. That's something that they don't teach kids anymore. Mm-hmm. There's a thing called, and I keep hearing this right brain, left brain. There's a thing called multisensory learning, and that's basically teaching children either who are audibly, teaching kids who are visual by seeing things, tactile, meaning you're giving them things to break apart and put together. Kinesthetic involves they're dancing and moving around. Somebody's unmuted or they have their thing up too loud. That's why we're hearing that echo. And these are the things like any teacher worth her salt at the beginning of the school year, one of the first things she should do is give her kids a survey. I give my kids a survey every year. Tell me how you like to learn. Do you like to sing and dance while you're learning? Do you like to stand up at your seat and tap your feet? Do you like to tap pencils? There are things, these things I incorporate into my lessons when I'm teaching my kids. People wonder how it is that I'm able to grow my special education students because I teach them according to what they like.
Right.
I make sure that I incorporate those things. And then I also teach them those life skills that they need to know in those moments when they feel like they want to go into survival mode. Hold on, before you go that far, stop. Because once you get to that point, most adults don't understand their learning style, but that's because nobody ever actually took an interest to find out what their learning style is. That's why they don't know. That's why I said any teacher worth her salt makes it her business to find out how does a child learn. Because when you know how your kids learn and you make your lessons according to how they learn, you'll be surprised what you can get done. You can get a lot of things done because everything is geared towards your children. And that's one of the ways that you can implement individualized learning for kids, just simply by knowing how they like to learn, what it is that they like to do. You can incorporate these different career inventories. Like one of my students, she wants to be a lawyer. I'm like, okay, you want to be a lawyer? That means you need to focus on reading, writing, and you need to know your history. You need to know your history because guess what the laws are? It's a bunch of history. Before it became a law, there had to be some act somewhere, some situation that resulted in this law being made. You need to know your history. You need to be able to write. You need to be good with public speaking and oral speaking and oral expression. I'm sorry. Because when you go to court, you can't stand there and stutter. You got to be fluent with it. You got to be able to sit up there and write so well and be able to articulate what you're saying that even if your client is as guilty as the day is long, that judge is going to believe that he's not. All because you broke an impressive argument that won them over to your side and made them see it from your point of view.
That's true.
You know, I think too that people be sleeping on those IEPs, the individualized educational plan. Remember that I was talking about, and I know Brolic T can relate to that, talking about being ahead. My son was in elementary school, but he was doing 11th grade work. So the school did not want him to work ahead. So there was a battle for me. And my son was never, this particular son was not in a special ed class because he's not the dyslexic one. I had to force them to do an IEP that would allow him to do 11th grade work in elementary school because they did not want him to work ahead, which is some of the type of obstacles. So when you advocate, you have to be willing to go in there. Like I fought a whole school system. I'm not scared of school systems. I will fight them and bring them to the ground. I don't play with you because my kid is there, and this is his life. This is not a joke to me. So I've made school systems rewrite their entire program because I'm just that one that's gonna get in there and tear it up. I'm like a dog with a bone. I'm not gonna let go. Even after my children were grown, I still sat on out of that school particularly. I still sat on the PTA. Board. I was the vice president for a very long time. So if you know what you know, you can go in and you can request an IEP and they have to teach them according to the IEP. That's not something that they tell you because they don't want to do the paperwork. So,
you know how they say they put it in the, you know how they say if you, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
You know how they say if you want to hide something from people, You know how to say if you want to hide something from people, put it in a book.
That's
Parents
what
get a
he said.
manual. Parents get a manual that tells you about your rights for your child. You'll be surprised how many people don't read that book. But if you actually took the time out to sit and read that book or have somebody read that book to you, it tells you how to go by advocating for your child. Did you know that you like Lakia, you said that the school didn't have what it is. Do you know that if you advocated for your child, you wouldn't have had to pay for her to go to a school to get what she needed. That would have been their burden because they don't offer that service.
Well, this was more. That's good to know. But no, that's good to know. That's good to know.
That is something that so many people don't know. Like I have a cousin who was a special education student, and the school district that she went to did not have they didn't have the services that she needed to be successful. So they had to bear the burden of paying for her to go to another district where they did have the program so that she could be successful. But that's all about knowing what the laws are and being able to advocate for your child.
See, for her, my situation was more like
that same son. I made them get he had a personal teacher on the school city's dime because they didn't recognize dyslexia as a special education need. So if you're telling me that you're not going to help my son, I'm going to make sure you help him. I read that handbook from front to cover. And matter of fact, when one of my children was in middle school, they were trying to institute something that was not in the handbook. And it was going to be a difficult problem for the children. But because I read the handbook, I was knocking on the door. Knock, knock, knock. I'm here. We got a problem. So they were not able to institute what they wanted to because it was detrimental and I wasn't going for it. And I would still do that for children today. In fact, I was asked by one particular city that we lived in to become the advocate for the school system. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing all that. I got a real job. I got a punch a clock. You know what I'm saying? But there are things that they won't tell you. You write that handbook because that handbook is what I use to defeat them with. You know what I'm saying? So people don't read it, but they really should.
I wanted to know, is the program that you're doing with these boys, is it actually a part of the curriculum in the school system in Niagara Falls now?
No, this is I'm a contractor.
Why aren't they?
You have to ask them. I'm trying to get them to implement it. That's why I'm trying to get them to allow me to do trainings with the teachers, with the parents, a parent training, a teacher training, because like I go once a week. And I'm saying once a week.
To ask you that, how often do you go?
Once a week this program I'm doing right now is once a week for 8 weeks. Most of my programs run 20 weeks in the schools. They go 10 weeks and then 10 weeks the second semester. But the contract I have with Niagara Falls right now is a 8-week program because they want to see how it will work.
Is it a class or is it an after school program?
I do it. It's a morning program. I go in at 7:30 in the morning. I'm the first person they see I do a Tuesday and a Thursday program. And I go in at 7:30 and we go to 8:45. And they leave and go into, homeroom or whatever they do after that. But what I've been trying to encourage the superintendent and the principals to do is to contract with me to teach what I do with the students. So this way it's being reinforced in the classroom, it's being reinforced at home, and then it's reinforced when I come in and do the program. But getting them, again, what somebody said earlier, the young lady who's a teacher, she said earlier, teachers are only going to do what they want to do. And for them to have to learn a new skill is going to help the student and make their job maybe a little harder or make them have to work. A lot of them don't want to do it. So that's where the problem falls.
I guess we must be lucky here in Texas. Everything that you're both talking about, they do down here. They take SPED seriously down here in Texas. And they make sure that parents know their rights when it comes to their children, whether they read the manual or not. Mine went through special education at one point. He was wheelchair bound. And I'm not playing. They had everything he needed to succeed. They actually have a program here in Texas. They can stay, any kid that's in SPED can stay in school until they're 21. I don't know if that's a national thing, but they can actually stay in school until they're 21. And then they integrate them for those that have a disability that might prevent them from working an everyday job or going to college. They integrate them into society doing jobs that fit, you know, their skill set.
Most of the kids I work with are special ed though.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying, because she talked a lot about SPED kids, and you tend to see this problem with SPED kids. I was surprised to hear you say that about these children that just can't read. And I don't know if it's because there's such a large immigrant population in Texas that type of stuff just doesn't get missed here, because you have so many Mexican children that don't know English that everybody gets caught up, you know, American students and immigrants, they all get caught up. So you very seldom hear about a problem about someone graduating and not knowing how to read. Comprehension, I know, is a totally different thing. Some people can read and just not understand. And I think that pushes them into SPED. But does your program work through every level of school, elementary, high school, middle school, or is this just strictly for one particular age group of boys?
No, that's what I was talking about earlier. We have a middle school program 5 through 8, which is what this book is for. This is a journal that we use with our middle school 5 through 8. They wanted us to go to 4th grade. 4th grade just was difficult. And then we do a high school journal, which is actually 8th grade through high school. So this is what we work with. We work with 5th grade through high school, 12th grade, but then we also do a program for up to kids 24 years old, which is called Think and Grow Wealth, where we teach kids entrepreneurship, real estate investing, and introduction to the stock market, how to save money, all those things, financial literacy program. And it's called Thinking Through Wealth, and we do that through the Buffalo Urban League.
Now tell me, if a female wanted to do this, would she be able to do this, or is this?
Yeah, we do. We work with boys and girls, but
boys and girls.
We work with boys and girls. We do a program. Our program started out with a program called No Dream is Impossible, which was boys and girls. But then they found, and I found, that the boys were having such an issue that I started to focus a lot of my work on the boys. But I still do No Dream is Impossible. I still do Think and Grow Wealth, which is both boys and girls. But most of the contracts that we get during the school year is we'll get like 4 programs for boys, from Boys to Men, and we'll get 1 or 2 programs to do No Dream is Impossible at the same time. And then in the summer, we'll do Think and Grow Wealth.
Are you doing this all by yourself? Is
yes,
this just
basically.
You all by yourself? Really? You should come to Texas. They would love you here.
They would. They love me.
I'm just saying, you would be well received here, because they, you know, when I was
in Louisiana too,
they had Trot. So if you wanted to be a nurse or an electrician, a plumber, whatever, you would go to Trot, and you could graduate with your certificate or be able to sit for your state boards. And they do that here also. They have a specialized school for if you want to do culinary arts, you know, those sorts of things. You can go to that school, but within each high school, they have what they call programs of choice. So if you want to be a police officer, you know, you would go to Grand Prairie High. If you want to be a nurse, you go to South Grand Prairie. They have a whole different school if you are into the arts, whether it is theater, music, whatever. They have their own separate high school, and it's also an open school district. So kids who don't live in Grand Prairie, if they want to come to our specialized school, if their parents are willing to drive them here, then they can come. And slowly but surely, most of the school districts are opening up to be open, so that if your child wants to move around, they can. The only thing you can't move around for is athletics. But as far as academics and the arts, they still do it. They find a way to do it. But
see the caveat in that.
They always find a way to get it done. But one thing I will say about sports in Texas, I think when I started, college was just when they were starting to make athletes like pass and graduate. You couldn't just be a dumb jock anymore. And down here, they really push that. If you really look into what it takes to be a student athlete in college, the prerequisite is much higher than your average student. Your scores have to be higher. The only thing they let you lax on is like your SATs. They give you a break on your SATs. If your GPA is high enough, your SAT score can be lower. But most of them score pretty well anyway, because the standard for your 4 core subjects are so high that it's almost impossible to be a student athlete without being able to read, write, add, subtract, those sorts of things. But that program would be so well received in Texas, in pretty much any school district. So I hope it works for you up there.
I may have to come down there because
Niagara Falls is
I get so much resistance here in Western New York. I get so much resistance that I actually just started a 501c3 nonprofit agency so I could get my own funding and grants, because I got tired of arguing and trying to prove. I mean, they see the results from the students, but they just don't want to implement it.
See, if I could just push in real quick.
Parents or the school district?
No, it's the school system. The school system here is so about hiring friends and family instead of hiring people that care about the children. And that's the sad part about the district. And that's what Niagara Falls, this whole area. The one thing I would share is about advocating. I wanted to just touch back base on that too, because we were taught as kids, and someone else can correct me if you were raised differently, but not to open your mouth when an adult speaks to you. You don't say nothing. You know what I mean? So kids didn't know how to advocate for themselves. So I found, and that's another tool with my kids, I allow them to express themselves. I said, listen, share with me what's on your mind, because I want to know what you're thinking, so that I can help guide you in a direction. If you're thinking, an offer, just to help you understand what's going on and why this is going on, or what's this about, or whatever. So I allow them to express themselves, to advocate for themselves, and we have a conversation about it. And that's something that you said, Raleigh T, that's so important. That is a tool that we do need to teach our children, because I have some very outspoken kids. And at first I was like, I wasn't raised like this. My mouth, I'm getting smacked in the mouth. I'm like, I can't say this to this person, but it's necessary, because kids need to be able to say, wait a minute, to a teacher. And my daughter's my daughter, my 15-year-old, 16 now, in high school, she'll say, well, wait a minute, Miss so-and-so, you didn't say that. That's not, that's not what the book say. Or she'll say something and she don't have a problem just expressing herself, advocating for herself. And that's, and I'm proud of that, because I know I was scared to open my mouth. And I think that's where I did not learn what things I could have learned, because I was scared to open my mouth and advocate. But also talk about Niagara Falls. My thing with my daughter was schooling wasn't schooling, it was sports. We do not have the support for the African American community here in Niagara Falls like we should. I think it's because a lot of people are leaving, and I believe that we need to stick around. And the only way it's going to change if we stick around and come together. But it is that crab in the barrel mentality here. It's sad, but I'm here raising my kids because I'm teaching them and I'm training them. And then if they decide to leave, but I always try to get them to stay. But they don't want to stay.
That's why we do the art of public speaking in the program, which is what you were talking about, allowing them to learn how to public speak. And from there, they will become more vocal. They will be able to say things and be able to present themselves in a manner. Because a lot of times kids don't want to public speak because they don't know how to present themselves, how to really say what's on their minds. So we do the art of public speaking with them. And then that helps them to feel confident when they have to ask a question of a teacher or state their feelings about what they're feeling and what they're going through in the classroom or even at home. So we do a lot of those things with them. And when she's talking about, like, I'm not from Niagara Falls, but I live here now. I've been here almost 10 years now. And I was going to leave. I was going to move away, but I ended up volunteer as a track coach because I run track and field. I ended up volunteering 4.5 years ago as a track coach. Never paid me a dime. And Lakia tell you, I was at all the track meets. They never paid me anything. I was there, the girls track coach for the sprinters down the jumpers, everything. And I did that for 4.5 years. And it was because I saw such a need with the girls and with the students in general. And I was doing not just coaching, but I was doing life skills with them. I still have kids right now that contact me. I just helped one girl. I wrote she asked me to do a reference letter for her. She's going to Georgetown University. Another one going to Penn State. So, I mean, they reach out to me because, like I said, we do life skills with them while I'm coaching. I'm helping them to prepare for life after high school. Well, it's very tough here. I'm originally from Buffalo, but I've been here because I just see such a need with the young people in Niagara Falls that I just didn't want to leave.
So are the parents
There's
supporting
one
you?
aspect.
Are the parents supporting you?
A lot of parents don't even know about it until they see me post stuff on Facebook. Because the schools don't tell them. Because if the schools told them, what would they do? They would want their kids in the program. So the schools don't tell them.
They would flock to you. They would flock to you.
Exactly.
And they don't want you to have that power.
And that's what's happening right now. A lot of pushback because they don't want. I was at Abbott School last year, and the kids did so well, but they didn't let me go back there. And I had one principal actually fight me to keep me out of his school. I won't tell you the name of that school, but and it was in the heart of the Center Court area, but it was
Beach Avenue. Is that still open? Is Beach Avenue still open? It's not called Beach Avenue anymore, is it? Is it still called Beach Avenue?
I don't know the name of it.
What's the name of that?
I know the area.
I can't remember.
But he fought
the
to keep me out of his school. We don't want that in our school.
I have a question, not to make this about Niagara Falls or anything, but do you guys remember like a few years ago, there was a meeting about making a Toastmasters chapter here in Niagara Falls?
Yep. They met over at the Doris Jones Center and they did it.
I didn't hear anything else about it. I was there too. I didn't hear anything else transpire from that meeting, but I would like to see that come here because I think that would be advantageous for somebody, well, for everybody, but I'm interested.
Oh, Henry J.
The thing was they had the meeting and then they didn't, but you bring a meeting and you say we're going to have Toastmasters, but you don't explain to people what Toastmasters is and what the benefits of Toastmasters is. So if they don't understand what it is and why I need to do it, you have a few people show up like you did that night, and then it doesn't materialize from there because most of those people, like I was in another Toastmaster group, I just heard they were going to be there because a lot of them know me. I even spoke there at that event. They had me get up and speak because when they found out I was from I'm a part of National Speakers Association, which is a national organization of speakers. And when they found out that's what I was a part of, they asked me to come up and speak. But a lot of people have no idea what Toastmasters is and what the benefits of Toastmasters is. And that's what I implement in my program is Toastmasters. That's why I just call it the Art of Public Speaking. It's Toastmasters. I do all this.
People tend to shy away from things they don't understand. When
Exactly.
when I did my tutoring and mentoring thing, one of the aspects that I brought into it was the restorative justice. And a lot of parents and a lot of people was like, what are you talking about? So then you have to teach the parents so that you can teach the kids. But in the long run, it was beneficial to them because it was able to teach them about a sense of community and the how they say the checks and balance. The checks and balance, they were able to weigh that. So I thought it was a great program. It just took me a little while to get them to understand what I meant by that. There are so many things that can be done with that, and so many ways, in my opinion, you can go and apply it, and it'll be beneficial in the long run. So people tend to shy away from things they don't understand.
Right. You have to show them the benefit. If you don't give them the understanding of what the benefit of that activity is, they're not going to come out for it. And that's what happened with the Toastmasters event. They said, we're having a Toastmasters, we're thinking about bringing a club here For Toastmasters, all they knew was public speaking. Most people hate to public speak, but you didn't give them the opportunity to understand what the benefits of Toastmasters was. And that's why in my program, I do it with my kids, and I explain to them why I'm teaching them public speaking. So this way they can speak for themselves. And I said, I'm not going to have you just public speak. I'm going to have you talk about yourself. Tell me who you are, where you're from, and what you enjoy doing. Because the more you understand who you are, the better you are able to articulate what your problems are. When the teacher said, well, why did you do that? What the kids say, I don't know. They know, but they just don't know how to articulate it. So when they understand who they are and how they feel about things, why did you do that? Well, I did that because, and then they can explain it.
Well, speaking of Toastmasters, I'm looking to join a chapter down here. I put it off. When the pandemic hit, it slowed down, but now I know things are, well, I can't say it's slowing up because numbers are still rising, but I actually want to be actually in a physical building instead of doing virtual Toastmasters, but I'm looking to join that. But also, she disappeared again. I wanted to bring Soraya in because it seemed like she's doing something with her grandkids in the background, and that's she's doing some arts and craft, which it kind of ties into the subject matter when you teaching them certain things at home. But she, there she go. Let me see if I could get her in.
Can you hear me?
Mofo. Yeah, we were seeing what you got going on. You got a lot going on in the background. With you're teaching them some arts and craft.
Child, they being nosy.
She's doing all of that. She got the stir. She has to do that. But no, yeah, it's part of something that I started, Pretty Nerdy G brand, where I'm teaching mothers and daughters, something new. I love resin art. It's something that you can teach children, and I started with my grandchildren. And so anytime I'm down here, this is where she wants to be. Bitch, they stay in my face. Oh, I need a break. I need to go. Listen, this is why I got a big old goblet of freaking wine. Like, oh my God. I'm overstimulated. In the best way, because you have to say that, people don't really, take time to escape your grandchildren. I love my grandchildren, but there's a lot of stimulation. I live with my dog, me and the dog. That's it. So yeah, this is the escape, but now it's not the escape because we've got the little one that wants to learn too. But what do? You can't kick the kid out the way. That's frowned upon too. So we might as well learn something while we're all doing it.
Well, obviously, if you're doing something with your hands and you're building something, they're going to want to know. They're going to say, hey, this is better than sitting in front of a TV. How could I help you? Show me how to do that, Nana, or whatever they call you. So they're going to be down there. That's a given.
But that's something that I've done even with my daughter and my son. I heard somebody was talking about, when they asked their kid at like 4 or 5 what they want to be. My son told me what he wanted to be when he was 5. He said that he wanted to be an actor on TV because his favorite movie was, like, we were a Disney family. And so, that's what it was. I didn't watch a whole lot of filth unless I went to somebody else's house, but like I just was a very intense parent, and I wanted to give them everything. I wanted to preserve their innocence for as long as I could, because they have the rest of their lives to learn, the atrocities of this world that we're in. And it is my job to guide them through that, but age appropriately. And so I wanted to preserve their innocence for as long as I could. And so we've just always been into this type of a thing together. At the same time, teaching them that they have something that they can fall back on. This is something that I've been doing since I was a kid. Now, the reason I did it was different. I was trying to gain someone's approval. But through that, which is the gotcha for a lot of people, they don't understand, if you've gotten to a place where you're whole and healed and you love yourself and you come from a background like mine, Rebecca's, or anybody else that's been on the panel, you have to realize that, you probably wouldn't be the person you are had you not gone through all of that. That's the gotcha about it. Like, that's the BS. You know what I'm saying? So now I've got my children and my grandchildren. I don't want them to have to go through what I went through, but I do want them to learn the lessons. There's more than one way to skin a cat. It's very possible I would learn the same lessons had I not been through all the abuse, but who knows? We'll never know that. I went through it. I went through what I needed to go through, did the work I needed to do, so now I have to figure out how to teach these kids how to do this without the damage that was caused to me. And, that's the gotcha sometimes. So when we're talking about, programs and things that the schools have, for me, that's great. If I did send my kids they went to kind of both. They did public school, and then at a certain point, like I found like a private, school that I had to pay for it and all that stuff. But I felt like I wanted them to have all of it. I wanted them to have everything that I didn't have. And most people think that I mean material things. No, I mean like a mom that gave a shit. Like I want them to have a very involved. Yeah. I'm their advocate. I'm not leaving it to them to advocate for themselves, because that's not their job as children. It is my job as their parent to advocate for them while teaching them how to respectfully, say what they need to say. But when it comes to the advocacy part, no, that's all me. That's the stance that I took. So when it came to teachers at school, you speak to that teacher respectfully. You can let that teacher know that you have a problem with something, but if it gets, to past that point, you come get me, and then I'll come and I'll mediate. Because when you're at the point where a teacher is arguing with the student, there needs to be another mediator in there. Now, I don't know who that needs to be. It didn't matter to me. It was going to be me, because I didn't have that in a mom. I didn't have that in mom. So again, I'm going to give my kid everything I didn't have. So for me, the tool started home. It starts with the foundation. It starts with you building a village. I don't care if you paint one, build one. I built one. There needed to be other male role models, other female role models, because I knew that I was damaged and I knew that I was working through something. But I also knew that I chose to have my fucking kids. My job to make sure that I'm giving them the best start that I can before I hand them off to somebody else and start to make it somebody else's responsibility. So that's just me. And now it's trickling down to my grandkids. I wanted to be everything that my mother wasn't. And to hear my daughter say that she wanted to be just like me, that was a tearful moment for me. So yeah, I have a responsibility to mine, because if I enable them to be the best that they can be here, they will take that out into the world. That's what they're going to spread into the world, instead of all the hatefulness and the nastiness that people can. And it starts at home. So that's where I'm at on that.
All right.
The four of us love you so much. I wanted to ask him, do you have programs like for parents? Because yes. I'm listening to you talk, and it really does sound wonderful, but I wonder, for those children that really are at risk because the home might not be, what it should be. Do you have programs for parents, or maybe for children who don't have a parent, in the house? They're missing their mom or they're missing their dad. Do you have programs for them too?
Yes, remember I said earlier, I said we do teachers, parents, and caregivers of kids who are living in at-risk situations. But a lot of times we get the pushback from the teachers, and because the schools won't tell the parents about the program, we basically just work with the kids. So we're doing 1 day a week, when if we were able to do it with the teachers and teach the parents, it could be reinforced at school and at the home. And then it really becomes something where you're actually getting those kids to be more successful. That once a week, the kids come out here excited, but if it was being reinforced in the classroom and reinforced at home, because think about it, if we're teaching the parents how to do it, now they can teach the siblings how to do it. We're doing, like I said, entrepreneurship, self-esteem, self-awareness, hygiene. We give out hygiene kits, which we give out to the kids, and we talk about hygiene. We do nutrition. We cover everything in 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 20 weeks, whatever we can do. But we're trying to get them to do the parents and the teachers and the caregivers, so that way it can be reinforced from all sides. But it's just, that's why I started the nonprofit, so I can get funding and just offer it at a community center where parents can come in. where, you know, and then offer it to the schools where the teachers can come in and it's already paid for. So that way there's no excuse why it can't be done. See, right now it's always an excuse. We don't have the budget, or we don't have enough teachers willing to do it, or we don't have parents, you know, want to come in. But they do, they just won't tell them about the program. Because every time I put it on Facebook, parents are saying, I wish that was at my son's school, or I wish I could learn more about that. But as a whole, it's not happening. So it is available. I even did a proposal for the city of Buffalo to do a parent, teacher, and caregiver training, a 10-week program for them. But they didn't want to pay for it.
And see, that's the thing, because it's always going to be a disconnect, whatever. If you don't have the parents involved, you can do whatever you can in school, but once they step back into that household, and if the parents don't have the knowledge of the schoolwork or the different programs, it's just they're going to lose that information, and you got to constantly reteach them over and over, and you only have one day or a couple hours. That's why I said this whole thing is just not right, whatever. And they keep talking about how can we fix this. Yeah, I know what the answer is. When y'all talk about they don't.
They like the way because they don't care about the children. But one thing I would like to just share, Saray, I want to let you know, I appreciate what you said, and I love you as well. You can add me up into that group. But I wanted to share too that as a parent, as I was saying about when Brother T said about advocating, I don't know if you saw, I had posted not too long ago, I was approached because I'm a very active parent in the school because I want to know what's going on with my kid. But one thing I do say to my kid, listen, if you want me to come talk to your teacher, you better make sure I ain't coming in looking stupid, because we know our kids. You know, sometimes kids can do things that they shouldn't be doing, and they want you to advocate for something that they did wrong. But I was approached by my daughter's guidance counselor, and she said, since we see how active you are as a parent, would you come on our talk show, Let's Talk? And me and my daughter went on that talk show. And they were so impressed by the way my 15-year-old daughter was talking, because she's more mature for her age. Because I talk to my children like I don't try to insult their intelligence and talk to them like they're babies. I talk to them from babies. I talk to them like they understood every word that came out of my mouth, because we're training from the point that they come out of our womb. We're training their children. We're teaching them from that point. And as we mentioned even last week, when do you teach kids? From as soon as they start knowing right from wrong or developing, you're teaching. So one thing I wanted to share is that we're always advocating, and I appreciate what you're saying. I always advocating for my kids or anybody else's kids at that, because I mean, I've had times where I've seen kids acting up in the street, and I'm like, stop this car, or something's going on, like, stop this car, because it takes a village to raise a child. So I do think that the more parents that are involved in the programs and the things that's going on in the school, that could help facilitate change.
Absolutely. I have all of the, because here's the thing, some of the things that we're talking about that we want, implemented into the schools now were things that were in the schools, and they were taken out of the schools because parents didn't feel that the school was qualified to teach the children about that. I remember going to home ec. Had I not had a home ec class, I wouldn't know a damn thing about a pomegranate. I wouldn't know anything about, a lot of the things. They taught us, how to balance our checkbook. My English teacher, taught us how to balance our checkbook. I don't know if that was part of the curriculum, but that's just what she felt that she needed to do.
Yeah.
And so, and I will go so far as sex education. I'm not on the fence with it. I do believe that children need to be talked to about it. I also believe that it needs to start at home. But at the same time, I believe that what happens to that kid that doesn't have that parent that will talk to them about sex? Because if you're not talking to them, if an adult is not talking to them, then they're going to be talking to themselves, fucking blind leading the blind. No one knows shit from Shinola about anything, but they don't have anybody else. So in that instance, I was grateful for the school system, for the health classes and all that stuff, because at the very least, someone could start to get the fundamental ideas, because I lived in such a home where you didn't talk about sex, you just don't do it. Well, we all know how that turned out, Well, those of us that know. Those of us that know. But you understand what I'm
Exactly.
saying? But because it was abused from everywhere, I was getting abused from everywhere, and so you know, these very things. When I'm talking about advocacy, I understand very fully that my extreme parenting is probably a trauma response. I understand that shit fully because and it is just what it is. So I don't mean to take away anybody else's experience. I can just tell people about mine. And yes, they had these programs in the school, but I still felt it was my job to do that. When there was a problem at the school, I just about had a desk in the guidance counselor's office because I didn't care how small it was. I was investigating. I was a legal man in the Navy, and everything that comes through that office, we got to investigate. So everything my kid says has to be investigated. I don't. I did. I was very, very intense about you telling me the truth. I need to be able to believe you because see, I'm coming guns blazing and ready. And if I get there and what I find out is that you've told me half of the story, well, now I got to point one of the guns at you. And I don't have a problem shooting both of you at the same time about your culpability and what just happened.
Right.
And I'm serving our country in the Navy, and you don't just call me to have to come to this school.
Right.
Talk
So
about shooting schools.
that's yeah. I said that to the teacher too. It does listen. Because that was my job. It was my job to teach my daughter that she is to always be respectful without allowing disrespect. And that's a hard thing to teach because most people believe that not tolerating respect means that you have the right to get loud and rowdy and all that. I needed my kid to know, no, you do not have that right. You let mama do that. I'm good at it. I've been practicing. I got it. You be right.
And so let me go back to when I was talking about teaching your child to advocate. Because when I was a kid, my mom's version of advocate is if somebody does something to you, you let that person know you don't like it and for them to not do it again. But you also make the teacher in the room aware of the situation. Now, if the teacher fails to rectify the situation, then please believe mama is coming and y'all met my mother. So you can imagine what
Oh, Mama T, Mama T.
you can imagine what it's like sitting in a school meeting with her because she don't pull no punches. She don't pull no punches. And if you calling her to the school telling her that her child is in the wrong, then you better have some definitive proof that they're in the wrong, and you better not have nothing to do with why they're in the wrong because she's coming for your neck and not ours.
That's the same way I did with my kids.
Teach.
My mom is that person that will have a news station sitting outside your school because she's done it before. She's done it twice in my lifetime.
When it came to like bullying and stuff, like I'm gonna go ahead and put myself on the chopping block and say that because I was bullied as a kid and going through everything else I was going through, I had to get them off me. So my comeback game is very quick. I can cut you. I can cut you before you even know you've been cut. But that's because it's a defense mechanism. So I did not really stem that in my kids. If someone's bullying you, you handle that. You let them, because see, with that, tell the teacher. I do get it. I'm saying I'm putting myself on top block. I know that this might not have been the right thing to teach, but I taught, you beat their ass and you tell the teacher why you did it later.
I support that.
And that, but see,
I tried.
I support that.
We can't have that attitude in the schools.
Listen.
No.
That was my mom's attitude. See, my mom.
I support that.
You were not, because I've been there with the telling the teacher. Now, I was a nerd in school, so the teachers kind of knew what was going on in my household. So the first thing is, if I did something, they knew that I was provoked to the max, because I do remember a boy, like, he kept on messing with me, and I tried to tell him, I'm going to need you to leave me alone. But because I was shy and because I didn't talk until I was in like the 3rd grade and all of that shit, they thought that they could. And I remember purposely knocking my pencil down on the floor so that he would pick it up. So that, you remember the great big dictionary that we used to have on our desk? I made him pick that pencil up for me, and I took that fucking dictionary, and it came down as hard as it could on his head. From that day forward, no one else bullied me. See what I'm saying? I got to get him up off me quickly. So yeah. I'm
no,
so
see,
dead.
I totally understand. But see, here's the thing.
Mm.
My mama's philosophy was this: you let the teacher know, so that when you throw that punch and you break that kid's nose, they had already been forewarned that there was a situation going on that needed to be addressed. Now, if they failed to do their due diligence and to make sure that that situation was put to a stop, what comes next? That's their issue. And then she gonna deal with it when she get to the school. Because when they call, she coming and slap somebody.
That's why they have school counselors. That's why they have us up in there.
Listen, no.
But you know what?
Not guidance counselors, school counselors.
Why do they have school counselors?
Right.
We
We
didn't
didn't have
have
that. My,
Be the hub of the school.
I taught my
We
kids.
didn't have a
I
school
taught my
counselor.
kids.
I don't know what her job was or what his job was, because nobody knew who the hell the school counselor was. It was the teacher or the principal.
He was
That's
usually the
who you
dude
went to call
scheduling
when you got in
classes
trouble.
and shit.
Yeah, that's the push what it's from. Like, we don't like to be called guidance counselors anymore. It's school counselors, because we do more than scheduling. We do a lot of bit of everything: administrative roles, teaching roles in the classrooms, cafeteria duty, all types of things. It's just not sitting there doing schedules, and that's the thing. And I can say, when I was at school, I only see my guidance counselor at the time. That's when they was called guidance counselors, when it was time to do schedules. Other than that, I'm like, I didn't know who this dude was. But it's different nowadays. Whatever, we are very acclimated with the students, and they see us on a regular basis, and they know who to go to.
Well, you know what? I told my kids the first time something happened, you let the adult know, because the adult is supposed to handle the situation. And if they don't, and it's the second time, make every single lick count and then call me.
Girl,
And when
yeah.
I got there, I'm gonna tell you what the superintendent told me. I don't ever want to have to talk to you again. I never ever want to have to talk, because I wasn't going. You know what I'm saying? Because the school has a responsibility to keep my kids safe. If my kid come to you and say, hey, this is the issue, and you don't take it seriously, then you better believe you're gonna take me seriously.
Well,
that's all. Because counselors are reactive. You guys are not there when the situation is happening. You can only show up afterwards. We didn't have counselors. I had schedulers. They were called schedulers. When I was in school, you go to see them to schedule your classes. Other than that, you didn't see them. So that's a reactive thing. I need you to handle this situation in a moment. That's why I told my children to let the adult know. I also believe, and I taught them that well, you can speak up for yourself, but you better not be disrespectful.
Exactly.
One of the things is when you have teachers that's good classroom managers and behavior managers, you don't see that in certain teachers' classrooms. Whatever, kids know to come in there and they're gonna be in line. And I'm gonna shout out my man J-Rob at my school. They know you gonna get correct. He ain't gonna have no fights break out in his classroom or whatever the case is, because he know how to manage the classroom. But a lot of times, and that's where the system failed, because they put new teachers in tougher schools who don't, because the veteran teachers, after a while, they want to transfer to the cushy jobs where the students with the GT and AP students in the magnets, so they can like, oh, this is cush. I didn't put in the time. But then people fresh out of school come in and they say, well, you have to go to this school. So now they dealing with all the behaviors, but they don't have that expertise in classroom management. So that's when you have all the chaos, whatever.
I'll be honest to say that a lot of what they teach, a lot of what they teach you in school about classroom management really does not apply when you get into the actual classroom.
No, not at all.
Because they're talking about kids that don't really exist anymore. They're talking about kids from our generation. when we were growing up, how to handle that kind of child. Because the children that we deal with today are nothing like what they talk about in these textbooks that they throw at you and they beat you over the head with, because none of that stuff works. You know, and unfortunately, that's why I say it's important for a teacher to learn her students, because when you learn your students, you learn how to handle them and how to manage them. They will teach you how to deal with them if you take the time to learn it. And if you just pay attention.
This is true. Hey, gang, we ain't gonna be here all night. We about to do some closing. It's been a great dialogue. We about to do some closing points, and we gonna get out of here.
Because you got 200 kids tomorrow?
Got 200 kids tomorrow. Don't even go with that.
200 zombies.
Zombies,
that
pretty
came
much.
from your mouth.
Zombies. Yeah, exactly. They're zombies at this point after this pandemic. They really don't have too much to say, not too social. They just keep it moving, and you're like, okay, then. We say, have a good evening.
I got a whole bunch that are not zombies. You can come handle them.
I need smoke.
I need all that smoke.
Guess what? Today I had a student come in my office today. She was a brand new student. I gave her a tour around the building. I was like, man, this is great, whatever. Just to be able to do that, because it's not the same before. It's crazy. It is crazy. But we're going to do our closing comments. We just go in order. Lakia, what's your closing comment to everything that was said? And it was a lot said tonight.
Well, there's a little old saying, and I hope I'm saying it right, is you teach one, you teach one, you reach one. So it's all about just teaching one child at a time, and just, not giving, it's not about, I wanted to share this too. Somebody kind of briefly touched on it just real quick. It's not about what's on the outside with the child, it's what's going on with your training and teaching them on the inside. Not allowing pride to govern how we train and teach our children based on what we're trying to show others. And it's about their personal growth, taking it away from ourselves and giving children that personal growth, that attention that they need, so that they can be another productive, respectful adult in this community and society.
All right. I'm gonna bypass you, Willie. I'm gonna save you for last because I want to close it out with you with all that great program that you have that I need to steal it, so or get schooled on it so I can utilize it. All right. Scorpio T, closing comment.
To thine own self be true. It's not going to change. It's the same comment, it's the same closing argument. To thine own self be true.
All right. Mofo.
I mean, mine is the same too. Check yourself more than you check other people, and that applies here too. Everybody needs to take, their responsibility when it comes to these children. But especially, like I said, for me, I'm just an advocate for it. Really starts at home, because you really don't know. It's a crapshoot what you're gonna get in your school system, quite honestly. So the foundation has to be strong. So again, just checking yourself more than you check other people, and fair exchange being no robbery. I told you, most of us is thieves out here. And that starts at home too. Letting your kid get away with certain things. The lessons are always being taught. So, that's what I've got.
Girly girl.
Can't go with my usual saying, but what I do want to say is that I appreciate his words tonight and what he's trying to do for the community in Niagara Falls, because it really is shattered there. And it's wonderful to have a positive Black man on the panel that has something good to say about not only our boys but our girls too, and that you really are trying to elicit a change in how people think and deal with our kids, and hopefully changing something within themselves, because it really does take a community to raise a child, and we don't get this a lot on this panel. So I really do hope things work out.
Hey now.
We gotta clap our hands for that one. That is so true.
I'm taking that personal.
Please do.
You'll be all right.
Please do.
Dave, that means you got to bring me back, man. You got to bring me back, right?
You can come back anytime, all day long. You can come back all day
We'd
long.
like you to come back. We're glad that you show up,
Yeah.
and I really hope you get that 501c3. I really do.
Yeah, you need to have some positive words for some of these men out here. So yeah.
Yes.
You need to work on some of them beta males that we got to deal with all the damn time. So, yeah.
Yes,
You're
please.
more than welcome to come back. Yes.
That's a whole nother show right there.
Boy,
Yes.
I'll be all ears.
Sure is.
All ears.
That's a whole nother show.
Y'all starting something. Y'all know y'all starting something.
You said you want
We ain't
smoke, right?
starting nothing.
Oh, I need some smoke because I don't get it at the schoolhouse. All right, Brolic
First
T.
of all, don't nobody say schoolhouse, just for the record, okay? I'm gonna get
First of all,
okay?
that's what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna call it the schoolhouse.
I'm a doggone schoolhouse.
Schoolhouse.
Let me know, Lord Red House.
Got to be right back to Conjunction Junction. Everything. Yeah.
Schoolhouse. You know why it's a schoolhouse? You know why it's a schoolhouse? Because remember, I told y'all my plan. Like schools, it's not schools anymore. It's homes. It's social services. It's everything. We have to do everything in the schools nowadays. So it's the schoolhouse to me. This is the schoolhouse. All right, Brolic T. You muted.
Well, y'all know me. Don't not hurt, go to lick now. Further. On a serious note, I'll leave y'all with something my grandma always said to me when I was a kid growing up. She always used to tell us to choose our words wisely because words have power. They have the power to build or they have the power to break. So choose them wisely.
All right. Appreciate that. Anita.
It was a good show. Thank you for everybody's input. It was all important. I listened more than I speak tonight, so I learned a lot. And reading comprehension is very important in adulthood, in adulting.
Yeah, definitely.
I was listening.
All right. Willie, the start of the evening. Go ahead and drop your jewels, give your closing points, and tell them how they could reach out to you, purchase your material, and whatever the case is.
Okay, I'm gonna actually start out with I see a comment here, and it was talking about Superintendent Laurie is doing a great job moving things along, and I want to agree with that because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be in the schools. He's the only one that I've promoted my information to, and he's found schools that will let me come in and do the program. So I do want to give a shout out to Mr. Laurie because without him, I would not be in the Niagara Falls City School. So I want to thank him, always thanking him for his support and helping me. Now I just need y'all to help him push me to get into high school. That's where I'm really trying to get into the high school kids as well. So now, one of the things I always say to my young people, and I always suggest people say that to their kids they know, kids they don't know. One of the things my grandmother used to always say to me when I was growing up, you can do anything that you set your mind to. And reinforce that because we know if we tell a kid not to do something and they want to do it, they will find a way to do it. So by encouraging them to do anything that they set their mind to, that's letting them know that they have no limitations. It's just all about thinking about the things you want to do and then making sure that it's something that's going to be creative and positive for you to do. So I do that with my young men all the time, my young ladies as well. You can do anything that you set your mind to. And Lakia, no, my track girls, I convinced them of that. And they broke school records and all kind of activities, qualified for sectionals, stuff when they were told, y'all don't listen, y'all hard-headed, y'all ain't gonna do nothing. And for 4 years, they broke school records and did everything that they could do to prove that they could do anything that they set their minds to. So encourage our young people to do the positive things. Teach them chess and work on their public speaking and play video and all kind of things. Use that right brain learning for them, because with that, that's what's going to help them to make it through school until they can get that reading level and that writing level together. Working with them and keeping our young people encouraged. And again, I just want to thank you guys for allowing me to come out. I really enjoyed this, and I can't believe we've been on here 2 hours, but it's been a great 2 hours. And like I said, I will come back. You know, I'm glad to hear that I can come back, and I will come back because I've enjoyed this.
Thank you, brother, and thank you for bringing your expertise and your knowledge and your passion for education and just life, period. And we all know it takes like diverse individuals to make this thing work, especially in the school. And the one thing you said, if we can bridge the gap and bring parents in and have some type of system. I don't know if it's a weekly parent night, children night or something. That's what we have to do, because other than that stuff, the message seems to get disconnected when the kid leaves the school or leaves your program and go home. And then the parents, if they're not able to always reach you, because some of our parents work in 2 or 3 jobs, and you know the drill, it's not always bad situations. Some of them just, they're working and they're working different shifts, and kids, latchkey kids, old school saying, but it was still relevant that this is the way of life. So we all have to try to stay connected, and it was wonderful having you on here, and definitely appreciate you, and hopefully we can connect and talk about this public speaking thing, this curriculum, and build and grow. And I'm in Baltimore now, but I always frequent Niagara Falls, Buffalo, you know, on a regular basis, because I still have family there, and I'm always trying to connect with good people that's trying to do things in a positive way. So those
I might be your way in a couple of weeks anyway, so we'll talk for sure.
All right, you come down, because we definitely meet all we can and be more, because they wilding out here. All right, thank you, ladies, for joining and bringing y'all experiences and y'all expertise and what y'all have in your toolbox for y'all kids, and keep it going. And just, we, you know, like I always say, we just got to keep sharing and growing and trying to be positive, and because we're all in this together, no matter what. Even if we don't want to be, we're all in this together. All right, folks, we out of here. Everybody, enjoy the rest of your week, and we also have a segment on Thursday.
Good night.
So we out in. Everybody, good night and be safe.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.